Brown Girl Dreaming, a novel in verse, first chapter Friday read aloud video with the Word Nerd. Just a quick reminder before we dive in that I have many more novels in verse available for you on my channel. Today, as you listen, watch for the story quote that will appear on screen. Write it down word by word and then follow the instructions given to you by your teacher. Hi, my name's Amanda Zieba. Welcome to my channel Learning with the Word Nerd and another First Chapter Friday video. For this last week in April 2022, I am going to be reading you the first few pages of Brown Girl Dreaming by Jaqueline Woodson. This is both a novel in verse and also a memoir. A memoir means that Jaqueline tells us about a portion of her life, not the whole thing. That would be an autobiography. A memoir just tells us about a little chunk of her life. I'm going to read you the inside cover so we're going to know what kinds of things Jaqueline's going to share with us about her childhood. But before I do that, I want to tell you a few other things about this book. Number one, this book is award-winning. You can see my copy has the National Book Award seal on it, but it also won the Newbery Honor Award and also the Coretta Scott King Award. So not only do I think this is an amazing book, lots of other people agree. Another quick story about this book is that one time I was at the Wisconsin State Reading Convention and I was able to hear Jaqueline speak about her writing process and about her books, and she told us that she wrote, you guys are never going to believe it, guess how many drafts of this book she wrote? Let me hear you. How many do you think? Probably higher than that. Jaqueline shared that she wrote 50 drafts of this book. 50. That is mind-boggling to me. I think that a lot of times when we think about writers, especially famous writers, award-winning writers, we think that whatever they write down on the paper the first time, it just comes out good, and then they're done because they are good writers. And really and truly, that's not the way it works, not even for amazing writers with many, many books. It takes them a lot of revising. And so I sometimes think about my writing when I'm working on a story, and I think, gosh, if Jaqueline has to do a story 50 times in order to get it just right, who am I to think that like once or twice is good enough? So if your teacher's going to ask you to go back over a piece of writing and look at it again and revise just a little bit more, and you're frustrated with them, think, this is what real writers do. Even award-winning authors, especially award-winning authors. The last thing I want to tell you about this book is that this book shows up in another one of my favorite books that appears on this channel, this book. And it has to do with writing too. One of the main characters in Breakout, named Aloud, loves poetry and she loves writing poetry. And one of the ways that she learns to write poetry better is by looking at poems that Jaqueline wrote in this book and then trying them in her own way in this book. So I think it would be a really fun activity, teachers, to take a poem from this book that also appears in this book and see if your students can try their hand and come up with their own version, learning from both Jaqueline and Aloud via Kate Messner. All right, let's read the inside cover so we know what this book is about. In vivid free verse, award-winning author Jaqueline Woodson shares what it was like to grow up in the 1960s and 1970s in both the North and the South. Raised in South Carolina and later in Brooklyn, New York, Woodson often felt halfway home in each place and describes the reality of living with the remnants of Jim Crow and her growing awareness of the civil rights movement. In the South, kids teased her and her siblings about their northern ways of talking, and in Brooklyn, being a Jehovah's Witness meant following rules their friends didn't understand. But through all their journeying, there was always one constant: a deep family love and pride that made each Woodson stand up a little taller and shine a little brighter. Woodson's eloquent poetry also describes the joy of finding her voice through writing, something she always loved to do despite the fact that she struggled in school. Readers will delight in witnessing her growing love of stories and her funny, touching experiments in storytelling as she exhibits the first sparks of the writer she was to become. Poignant and powerful, each poem in Brown Girl Dreaming is both accessible and emotionally charged, each line a glimpse into a child's soul as she searches for her place in the world. With that, let's dive into Brown Girl Dreaming by Jaqueline Woodson. One of the other cool things about this book is that it includes a family tree of Jaqueline's family, so you know as she's sharing about these people, you can kind of find them on this tree and know where they fit into the family. Part 1, I Am Born. February 12th, 1963. I am born on a Tuesday at University Hospital, Columbus, Ohio, USA. A country caught between black and white. I'm not born long before from the time or far from the place where my great-great-grandparents worked the deep, rich land, unfree, dawn till dusk, unpaid, drank cool water from the scooped-out gourds, looked up and followed the sky's mirrored constellation to freedom. I am born as the South explodes. Too many people, too many years enslaved, then emancipated, but not free. The people who look like me keep fighting and marching and getting killed so that today, February 12th, 1963, and every day from this moment on, brown children like me can grow up free, can grow up learning and voting and walking and riding wherever we want. I am born in Ohio, but the stories of South Carolina already run like rivers through my veins. Second daughter's second day on earth. My birth certificate says female, Negro. Mother, Marianne Irby, 22, Negro. Father, Jack Austin Woodson, 25, Negro. In Birmingham, Alabama, Martin Luther King Jr. is planning a march on Washington, where John F. Kennedy is president. In Harlem, Malcolm X is standing on a soapbox talking about a revolution. Outside the window of University Hospital, snow is falling silently. So much already covers this vast Ohio ground. In Montgomery, only 7 years have passed since Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a city bus. I am born brown-skinned, black-haired, and wide-eyed. I am born Negro here, colored there, and somewhere else the freedom singers have linked arms, their protest rising into song. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. And somewhere else, James Baldwin is writing about injustice, each novel, each essay changing the world. I do not yet know who I'll be, what I'll say, how I'll say it. Not even 3 years have passed since a brown girl named Ruby Bridges walked into an all-white school. Armed guards surrounded her while hundreds of white people spat and called her names. She was 6 years old. I do not know if I'll be strong like Ruby. I do not know what the world will be like when I'm finally able to walk, speak, write. Another Buckeye, the nurse says to my mother. Already, I am being named for this place. Ohio, the Buckeye State. My fingers curl into fists automatically. This is the way, my mother said, of every baby's hand. I do not know if these hands will become Malcolm's, raised and fisted, or Martin's, open and asking, or James's, curled around a pen. I do not know if these hands will be Rosa's or Ruby's, gently loved and fiercely folded, calmly in a lap on a desk around a book, ready to change the world. A girl named Jack. Good enough name for me, my father said the day I was born. Don't see why she can't have it too. But the women said no. My mother first, then each aunt, pulling my pink baby blanket back and patting the crop of thick girls tugging at my new toes, touching my cheeks. We won't have a girl named Jack, my mother said. And my father's sister whispered a boy named Jack was bad enough, but only so my mother could hear. Name a girl Jack, my father said, and she can't help but grow up strong. Raise her right, my father said, and she'll make that name her own. Name a girl Jack, and people will look at her twice, my father said. For no good reason but to ask if her parents were crazy, my mother said. And back and forth it went until I was Jackie, and my father left the hospital mad. My mother said to my aunts, hand me that pen, wrote Jaqueline where it asked for a name. Jaqueline, just in case somebody thought to drop the IE. Jaqueline, just in case I grew up and wanted something a little bit longer and further away from Jack. The Woodsons of Ohio. My father's family can trace their history back to Thomas Woodson Chillicothe, said to be the first son of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Some say this isn't so, but the Woodsons of Ohio know what the Woodsons of Ohio coming before them left behind. In Bibles, in stories, in history coming down through time. So ask any Woodson why you can't go down the Woodson line without finding doctors and lawyers and teachers, athletes and scholars and people in government, and they'll say, we had a head start. They'll say, Thomas Woodson expected the best of us. They'll lean back, lace their fingers across their chest, smile a smile that's older than time, and say, well, it all started before Thomas Jefferson Woodson of Chillicothe. And they'll begin to tell our long, long story. The Ghosts of the Nelsonville House. The Woodsons are one of the few black families in this town. Their house is big and white and sits on a hill. Look up to see them through the high windows inside a kitchen filled with the light of watery Nelsonville sun. In the parlor, a fireplace burns warmth into the long Ohio winter. Keep looking, and it's spring again. The light's gold now and dancing across the pine floors. Once there were so many children here running through this house, up and down the stairs, hiding under beds and in trunks, sneaking into kitchens for tiny pieces of icebox cake, cold fried chicken, thick slices of their mother's honey ham. Once, my father was a baby here, and then he was a boy. But that was a long time ago. In the photos, my grandfather is taller than everybody, and my grandmother is just an inch smaller. On the walls, their children run through fields, play in pools, dance in teen-filled rooms, all of them. Grown up and gone now. But wait, look closely. There's Aunt Alicia, the baby girl, curls spiraling over her shoulders, her hands cupped around a bouquet of flowers, only 4 years old in that picture, and already a reader. Beside Alicia, another picture. My father, Jack, the oldest boy, 8 years old and mad about something. Or is it someone we cannot see? In another picture, my Uncle Woody, baby boy, laughing and pointing, the Nelsonville house behind him, and maybe his brother at the end of his pointed finger. My Aunt Anne in her nurse's uniform, my Aunt Ada in her university sweater, Buckeye to the bone. The children of hope and grace. Look closely. There I am in the furrow of Jack's brow, in the slyness of Alicia's smile, in the bend of Grace's hand. There I am, beginning. It'll be scary sometimes. My great-great-grandfather on my father's side was born free in Ohio, 1832. Built his home and farmed his land, then dug for coal when the farming wasn't enough. Fought hard in the war. His name in stone now on the Civil War Memorial. William J. Woodson, United States Colored Troops, Union Company B, 5th Regiment. A long time dead, but still living among the soldiers on that monument in Washington, D.C. His son was sent to Nelsonville, lived with an aunt, William Woodson, the only brown boy in an all-white school. You'll face this in your life someday, my mother will tell us, over and over again. A moment when you walk into a room and there is no one like you. It'll be scary sometimes, but think of William Woodson, and you'll be all right. Football dreams. No one was faster than my father on the football field. No one could keep him from crossing the line, then touching down again. Coaches were watching the way he moved, his easy stride, his long arms reaching up, snatching the ball from its soft pocket of air. My father dreamed football dreams and woke up to a scholarship at Ohio State University. Grown now, living the big city life in Columbus, just 60 miles from Nelsonville, and from there Interstate 70 could get you on your way west to Chicago. Interstate 77 could take you south, but my father said no colored Buckeye in his right mind would ever want to go there. From Columbus, my father said, you could go just about anywhere. And if you want to know where Jaqueline ends up going and what her childhood is like in both South Carolina and New York, you can read this book, Brown Girl Dreaming by Jaqueline Woodson. Pick up a copy from your school library, local indie bookstore, or from the link in the description box. Make sure you check out the rest of the First Chapter Friday videos in my playlist and also all of the other novels and verse I've shared throughout the month. And I hope you come back again next time for more First Chapter Friday videos from me, the Word Nerd. Happy reading! To continue reading Brown Girl Dreaming by Jaqueline Woodson, pick up a copy from your school library, local indie bookstore, or via the link in the description box. This week's mystery quote says, "Stories are like air to me. I breathe them in and let them out, over and over again." Thanks for watching. Come back again, and remember to subscribe so you get even more great content from the Word Nerd. See you again next time.